Hey, what's up everybody? Jonathan Toyad from Kakuchopurei here for you Kakucho players. This is gonna be a 14th of February kind of video, the weekend of love as they all say. I feel that for our video this week, I'm just gonna go for like a personal touch, hence the whole streaming segment thing right here. I'm gonna be talking about, since we already have a feature called My Happy Valentine's Day, the best couples video games, I'm gonna talk about my favorite romances in gaming from back in the day up until now. From my period of gaming, so let's dive right in. But before we head on and talk about all that jazz, a word from our sponsors. Tired of lost business cards and missed connections? Meet GoCards, your smart digital business card that makes networking seamless. With just a tap, share your professional details instantly. No paper, no hassle, GoCards is always with you on your phone. Customize your profile, update details in real time, and leave a lasting impression wherever you go. Go to gocards.com now and elevate your networking game. GoCards. Connect smarter, network better. Thank you, sponsors. On with the show. So that's our feature right there. So I guess one of my favorites would be, Ninja. I guess the earliest one that actually was in my mind was Ninja Gaiden, NES. Let's try cutscenes. Hold on. We're gonna go with, hold on. Gonna mute this for a bit. No, not this one. This one, the start here. Basically, Ryu Hayabusa and Irene. This should be fun. Like, you can see how chauvinistic this whole thing can get. Who's there? So what I like about this interaction and this romance from part 1 to part 3 is just how it all starts and how it all ends. Like, it's just so abrupt and very 90s, 80s in a sense. Love at gunpoint, at first gunpoint, as they say. And then we just skip right to the end. They just end up together. I guess they kiss. She's right in front of me. Oh, Ryu Hayabusa being smooth after rescuing her from the impending jaws of evil and an evil spirit from statues from Ryu Hayabusa's. And I don't even know your name. Holy crap, that's some weird ass first chance romance sort of thing going on. It's pretty interesting, as they say. So again, I was pretty young when I played this multiple times, and having this really awesome cutscenes coming out from a Ninja Gaiden game in the 90s to boot was actually unheard of for me. So it's really cool to see that play out from part 1, part 2, and part 3. Really interesting stuff. Though I actually did a bunch of entries right here. Ellie and Dina, they're also really cool. Like, I really like how the relationship blossomed in The Last of Us Part 2, especially with the fate of Joel, and then Ellie had to rely on Dina for moral support, and Dina supports her. They had a baby together, and you get to see the relationship also deteriorate because of Ellie's thirst for revenge and vengeance. It's very sad, but at the same time, it is poetic and also shows that maybe revenge is the last thing you want to actually approach whenever you have a stable relationship going on, especially in a hellhole like in Last of Us Part 2's universe. Then we got a couple more. These are pretty awesome. Titus and Yuna, Nathan and Drake, Nathan and Alina. Let's bring up Final Fantasy romances. I talked about Titus and Yuna. How about Locke and Celeste in Final Fantasy VI, where Locke is actually trying to project his lost love of a girl named Rachel onto Celeste, and then Celeste basically tells him, "What the fuck you doing, bro? Get over it. She's dead." And then in the side story, during the World of Ruin segment, Locke had to come in terms with basically letting Rachel go. So he did, and he just moved on. And all this is done in 16-bit with the best graphical technology possible, with the limitations and everything, with awesome music from Nobuo Uematsu. It really just gels really well. You get to hear the leitmotifs of Locke's theme, the Urgel theme, and then you get to see Rachel's promise and whatnot done in a very somber way. Leitmotifs are done really well in Final Fantasy VI, and anyone that tells you that FF6 is not a good Final Fantasy otherwise probably needs to get a head check, Great story, really awesome that every character in the game gets the spotlight and get their day in the sun, especially Locke and Celeste, who deserve a happy ending, given that they've gone through hell and back. So we also got Baldur's Gate. You got so many characters to romance. You've got Astarion, you've got Karlach, Mummy, Muscles and all that. I like that romance. So when I played the game for about 40, 50, 60 hours, I guess I went towards the default one, Shadowheart and Karlach. Shadowheart is because she's a bit more, I guess, a very sarcastic individual, but a very personable one you can make an impression on too, and then you get to warm up to her, she warms up to you. Really nice budding romance, and also dealing with her conflict in faith, whether she wants to be a Shadowborn or Shadow person, or want to actually go into the light and then get a nice haircut. Really cool. And you got Karlach, who basically is a demon you cannot touch, so you kind of want to help her out and give her something to make her cool down, so she can basically get physical and get emotional in the romance bits here and there. And she's like a big giant teddy bear who can basically rip off people's heads, so what's not to love about that, right? Alright, I guess Bayek and Aya is actually my entry that I put into this feature. So Assassin's Creed Origins, it starts off with Bayek taking revenge on the assassin, the warrior who killed his son. So both of them, they're grieving. But you see, they're actually together at first. They were still married, husband and wife thing at first, and then they separate at the end of Assassin's Creed Origins. And then you got the DLC where she comes back, and then it turns out that I want to rekindle this, but it doesn't really work. But you get to see a kind of fun relationship that is definitely not going to build to last because of the job description, the job that happens here. See, Aya feels that the son's death is actually a freedom for her, and she can not evade responsibility, just feels like my tether is gone, she wants to be free. Bayek just wants to hold on to Aya because it's like a reminder of the time they had as a family before the son died. So it is an interesting look at a relationship, a romance. Again, this is like a falling out of love kind of romance, not a falling in love sort of thing going on. So it's falling out. So it's really cool. Oh, depressing, but also a realistic way of looking into things like this. As realistic as a game featuring Eden magic spells and shit happening in the Egyptian pantheon. Then anyway, probably the most realistic part of Assassin's Creed is seeing Bayek interact with Aya. See, they actually use sex as a way to avoid the topic, and then when the topic of their son and their future and their job just comes into the picture, they just evade it and awkwardly try to pace around it and then just have sex. Yeah, it's not the healthiest, but also the most realistic way of portraying a relationship that is slowly deteriorating and breaking down. But you get to see something that was ideally perfect and then it just crumbles on. So again, my romance list is, again, the most fascinating romances I've seen, not the ones where it's very typical. Sometimes the most atypical one is also the most interesting, which is also evident of Nahubino and Yoko, where they sort of blossom into like, Nahubino actually makes all the decisions in the story mode, and then you actually eventually pivot to her way of thinking. She's actually the most practical among the bunch. So Nahubino gets to interact with Taro, another girl from her class, and Yoko. Taro's the more enlightened and the more optimistic one, and Yoko's the one that, yeah, humans are not so good. I guess the shadow of loneliness is something that we can live with in the end, where we can just rely on each other and reshape the world anew together. So I guess you could say that Nahubino and Yoko are like a romance that just blossom, but not quite a romance, more like a philosophy/romance thing being bloomed together in one epic 30-hour, 40-hour JRPG that uses Pokemon mechanics for your demons and shit. Overall, this one's a more interesting one as well, although it's more choice driven, and it actually became sort of like a couple thing at the end rather than like something that just eventually happens. But you can see that if you align yourself well with Yoko's way of thinking, as well as her way of how she wants the world to be shaped, the apocalypse and everything, then yeah, and that's an ideal romance you can go forward with. I'd say it's actually more deep when you think about it, actually a lot more deep compared to maybe your Persona 3, 4, and 5 relationships with the girls in those games. Edo and Karja, that's actually a new one from last year. So Not really a romance per se-ish, but you can see something actually sort of blossoming. And I can actually see Adol, Adol, the redhead adventurer for Ys 10, actually gets chained up together with Karja because of a pact and history from the Norse people, the Norsemen here. And they actually work together. Karja's more like the Tsundere Asuka type figure from Evangelion. If you watch Evangelion, she is actually the nicer version of Asuka. She warms up to Adol and the crew of the ship, and then you can see friendship, camaraderie, hints of romance here and there, and engagement thing going on. Even the spirit of Karja's mom actually, just tells Adol, hey, my daughter not good enough for you. That's sort of like alluding to that. It was really cheeky, and I really appreciate that kind of humor. And in the end, I like this pairing. This pairing actually makes more sense compared to Adol and the previous women he's paired with in past games. In fact, if they have a Ys 11 far into the future, if they somehow bring Karja back into that, 100% they're gonna be a couple. I'm very sure of it, or at least they're gonna allude to that. Or maybe give you the option as a multiple choice thing going on when you see Adol's past lovers / friends with benefits people popping up. Cloud and Tifa, of course, that's another one. Cloud and Tifa, definitely the default one because of the love triangle that goes on the original Final Fantasy VII because of Sephiroth. But at the end, it's basically like Cloud is a messed up guy, Tifa is just too shy and in a sense trying to break into Cloud's memories and trying to make sure that he's not crazy and whatnot. So I kind of like that development going on. If you know the playthroughs of Final Fantasy VII, you should know how this goes. Cloud pretends to be the image and the persona of Zack in the original story, and then Tifa had to go into his psyche to maybe break through all that when Cloud was in the wheelchair that one time after Mako poisoning. So it's really cool to see all that play out in Final Fantasy original. So I wonder how is that going to be in the third remake of the game. Last but not least, I just want to go to something a bit more typical, but a lot more thought out and more written into the story organically. So this Sega Saturn JRPG / PS1 RPG called Grania. That's really cool. Nothing more wholesome than something like this brewing up. Like, so if you have Justin and Fina, that's the couple that I actually root for in this game, Grania. So Justin is an adventurer, red-headed guy. He runs off his childhood friend Sue to go adventuring. Unfortunately, the adventure sector they're going to is actually like dissified. It's like a tour ride and all that, with Fina actually being one of the adventure tour guides, and then Justin made her snap out of it, and then she runs off with Justin and Sue to go do their own adventures to find the mystery ruins of Angelou and the civilization of Alent. So needless to say, that actually happened, but throughout the course of the adventure, we see Justin and Fina growing to admire, respect, and eventually love one another. See, when Justin breaks Fina out of her tour shell, like her lot in life, she sees Justin as, a potential ally and just stuck with him through thick and thin. And then because Justin and Fina are male and female, they're young, they're sort of like they have a chemistry going on with their feelings. That actually worked out really well. That was a really funny segment where they're actually stuck in the island of love, and then they had to fight out of the volcano. They get paired up, and then Fina gets really, really embarrassed. And you got like that whole like funny bits at the start of the game where, Justin ends up accidentally groping Fina when they're running around the tunnel and all that. It's, again, the whole comical 90s anime humor, like how young love blossoms to here and there, the comedic bits here. And my favorite bit in Grandia is when Justin and Fina were separated in the cave and they were stuck with their respective counterpart nemesises, I guess. Like, they had to find their way back up, and then they learned, not only did they learn a bit about the civilization of Angelou and Alent, but also about themselves and how they sort of share stories. Like, Fina was with the blonde captain, and then Justin was with this other woman soldier who, at the end of that journey, at the end of that particular dungeon, it turns out that that girl is actually Fina's sister, and a lot of complications happen right there. And then you're gonna be fighting an enemy, but it's a friend thing, so there's a lot of conflict here and there. And then when push comes to shove, when Fina approached a bit in the game, near the tail end of the game, where she has to make a sacrifice, Justin had to run off. He basically is helpless in dealing with his things, and then he ends up getting championed with his friends, by his friends and whatnot. So he actually had to go to the Empire, rescue Fina from the clutches of the Empire, fights off the blonde soldier guy, and then Justin and Fina team up with the rest of the group to deal with the invasion of aliens happening in the storyline. But hey, it's all... What I really like is how realistic young love gets portrayed in this game, where you got a common goal, you end up with a co-worker, you're all they see with each other, and then you just end up sharing feelings, relating to one another, making compromises, and then just go ahead from there. And it's just interesting. Look, I like Game Arts have done a bunch of like great love stories with Lunar, Silver Star Story, and Lunar Eternal Blue with Hero and Lucia. But Justin and Fina, they're a bit more, how do I put this, a lot more unique, because they're just fresh faces, and Justin is also a person trying to learn how to be a man from being a boy, growing up basically. And Fina is also trying to figure stuff out because she has her own secrets and her own doubts as an adventurer. So the two of them, the optimism, pragmatism, it actually works out, gels out together, all leading to a really happy, sweet romance and happy ending. So this is one of my top picks. And that is it for my romances in gaming, my personal top favorites. Off the top of my head, I'm dressed up for the occasion, all red and everything. I'm dressed up all red for the occasion. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. If you like this video, do check out a lot of our other stuff on Kakuchopurei's YouTube page, YouTube/Kakuchopurei. Hit that subscription button and all that, the ding dong and all whatnot. And we post new content weekly. Thank you so much for checking us out, and enjoy your Valentine's weekend. Bye bye. Bye bye. Sorry, camera's here.